Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Our topic for today is Jesus coming on the clouds, taken from Matthew 24, 29, and 30. Is it something happened in the past, according to Doug Wilson, or is it something that will happen in the future, according to John MacArthur? So, John MacArthur is pastor at Grace Community Church, and he's the author of The Second Coming, Because the Time is Near, and Christ's Prophetic Plans. On the right corner, we have Doug Wilson. He's pastor at Christ Church, Moscow in Idaho. He's the author of When the Man Comes Around. It's a commentary on the book of Revelation. And Heaven Misplaced. Lastly, is Christianity Good for the World? Our text in question is found in Matthew 24, 29 to 30. Let me read it for you. Immediately after the distress of those days, the distress here in Greek is thlipsis, or tribulation. So immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So there are two interpretations of this text as far as our speakers are concerned. Number one, pre-trib, premillennial, dispensational eschatology of JMac. So here's the timeline to give you a background. We start with creation and of course Jesus Christ, and now is 2020. For JMac, this text, the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, is something future. So this is a second coming text that will happen in the future, right after the Great Tribulation or 7-year tribulation. So in JMac's eschatology, he is a pre-tribulational. So that means there's a rapture of the church before the 7-year tribulation. And of course, in the 7-year tribulation, this is the time when Christianity, or the people who will believe in the tribulation, they will be persecuted, they will be beheaded, and they cannot buy or sell without the mark of the beast. So right after the 7-year tribulation, we have the second coming. So the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven is the second coming text. And when he comes, he will inaugurate the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ. And after that 1,000 years, the judgment, the righteous and the unrighteous will be judged, and the new heavens and new earth will be inaugurated, and it's also known as the perfect creation. On the other hand, we have the partial-preterist postmillennial Doug Wilson. So here's the timeline. Start with creation, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, Jesus Christ, and now is 2020. For Doug Wilson, this text is something that happened in the past. So he looks backward to the time of Jesus Christ, the generation of Jesus Christ, in around AD 30s to 70s. So that's the destruction of Jerusalem. So for Doug Wilson, what we are looking forward to is the growth of the kingdom of God. There's no longer rapture and great tribulation in the future. So what we expect in the future is the growth of the kingdom of God, leading to the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And by that time, there will be a final rebellion, the second coming of Jesus Christ, 1 Thessalonians 4:17. By the way, 1 Thessalonians 4:17 is a rapture text for JMac, but for Douglas Wilson, it's a second coming text. That includes 1 Corinthians 15:22 to 26. So right after the second coming, there will be resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous, and they will be judged, and then the inauguration of the new heavens and the new earth, or the perfect creation. So this is just a backdrop so that we can understand better Doug Wilson and John MacArthur. So let's begin with John MacArthur. John MacArthur came from a literal interpretation of Matthew 24, 29 to 30. So let's listen to him.
Here is the final staging. The sun goes dark, the moon goes dark because it gets its light from the sun. The stars fall out of heaven. The powers that are in the heavens will be shaken, which means the power that holds the heavenly bodies in their place in their orbit, doing what they normally, predictably continue to do, will be altered. That's what to expect. This is not new information to the disciples, by the way, or to any of the Jews who knew the Old Testament. Let me take you on a quick look at what the Old Testament promised. Isaiah 13 is, "For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not flash forth their light. The sun will be dark when it rises, and the moon will not shed its light. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken from its place." Verse 10, Joel 2, "The heavens tremble, the sun and moon grow dark, the stars lose their brightness. The Lord utters his voice before his army, his heavenly army. Surely his camp is very great, for strong is he who carries out his word. The day of the Lord is indeed great and very awesome, and who can endure it?" Then verse 31, Joel 2, "The sun will be turned to darkness, the moon to blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord come." But the question they had is, what is the sign of your coming? What is it? Here it is, the final sign. "Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory." Put it simply, the Son is the sign. The Son is the sign. Matthew 24:30 puts it this way, the sign of the Son of Man. The sign of the Son of Man. There have been preliminary signs through all of human history that we're headed in the direction that Jesus says we are. Look at history. There will be in the future all of those signs that will unfold clearly, visibly, that are part of the great time of tribulation. But this is the sign in the dark. No more moon, no more sun, no more stars, pitch black, terrified people dropping dead out of cardiac arrest because the fear is so monumental. Then they will see the Son of Man. And that's the sign. This is the moment. All redemptive history goes toward that moment. And I can't help but say this. You don't need to worry about preserving the planet. Please, you are wasting your time, your money, your energy, and your brain power. The planet's future is determined, and it has nothing to do with you or Al Gore. Nothing. Or anybody else. It is determined. This is where history is going, folks. And it'll be here until all of this devastation comes. And all the environmentalists on the planet together at the highest level can't stop this. He's coming. He came to die. He comes to kill. Celestial disasters, not for a long time. The final staging and the arrival of Christ is like the flash of lightning and glory. Daniel said, with the clouds of heaven. I just read it to you. John says in Revelation, he comes with clouds. Mark says, as we read, he's coming in clouds. Luke says he's coming in a cloud. And Matthew says he's coming on the clouds. So in, on, with clouds, folks, clouds. He comes with clouds surrounding him, lit clouds. They are often God's chariot, by the way, Psalm 104. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who lays the beams of his chamber in the waters, who makes the clouds his chariot. God rides the clouds. Isaiah 19:1, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rides on a swift cloud. So clouds are associated with the movement of God. Even the prophet Zechariah gives us a bit of a glimpse of this. In that day, 14:6 of Zechariah, there will be no light. The sun goes out, the moon goes out. The prophets all agree on this. The New Testament writers all agree. The luminaries will dwindle. It will be a unique day which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but it will come about that at evening time there will be light. And that light will be the one who is the light. In that day, there will be no light. I just read you Zechariah. The luminaries will disappear. Literally, you could translate the Hebrew, the bright ones will fade. There's no light. It's a unique day, which is known only to God. Only He understands the uniqueness of it. There's never been anything like it, because since the creation, it's been evening and morning and evening and morning and evening and morning, and all of a sudden there won't be any evening and there won't be any morning. Alas, for that great day, Jeremiah 30, verse 7 says, for there's never been a day like it, but it will come about that at evening there will be light. That's when the light Himself appears.
All right, so let's listen to Doug Wilson. Here's Doug Wilson's position. He's coming from a figurative interpretation, Matthew 24, 29 to 30.
When we think of the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, what do we tend to think? We tend almost always to think of the second coming. I just referred to two passages in Acts where Jesus went and the angel said He's going to come again, the same way He went. That will be the second coming. And in 1 Thessalonians 4, He's going to come again to raise the dead. That's the second coming. And when He comes again in the second coming, there will be clouds. So then we see Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. We jump to the conclusion that the only day possible in which there might be clouds will be the day of the second coming. You might stumble over a few passages in Matthew 24, because if you read Matthew 24 through, you will see, for example, strong apocalyptic language, what scholars call decreation language, or what I like to call collapsing solar system language. All right, the stars are going to fall, the moon turns dark, the sun goes out. Everything collapses. It's decreation language. Everything falls apart. Now, Bible-believing Christians look at that passage. The solar system collapses. They go out. They're reading in year 2020. They go out and look at the night sky, and the stars are still there, and the moon's still there, and the sun just came up this morning, and it's going to come up again tomorrow morning. And they say, oh, that must not have happened yet. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in the future. It must not have happened yet because they're all still up there. The problem is, remember what I said about letting the Bible interpret the Bible for you. This kind of decreation language, this kind of collapsing solar system language occurs throughout the Old Testament. It happens all the way through the Old Testament. In Isaiah 13, in fact, Jesus, when He's using this language in Matthew 24, He's quoting Isaiah. He's quoting Isaiah 13. And if you look at Isaiah 13:10, there it is, the solar system collapsing. And then you back up to verse 1 to see what Isaiah is talking about. And Isaiah says, behold, an oracle concerning the king of Babylon. And then you look at Isaiah 34, same thing. And you see that Isaiah in Isaiah 34 is talking about the nation of Edom. And then in Ezekiel, it happens again, and it's talking about Egypt. And in Amos, it happens again, and it's talking about the northern kingdom of Israel. And then in Joel, it happens again, and it's talking again about Israel. Everywhere in the Old Testament where the moon goes out and the sun goes dark and the stars fall, it's always talking about the destruction of a nation or a city. That's how the prophets talk about it. That's how they express it. And so the disciples at the beginning of Matthew 24 say, Jesus, they're rubbernecking through the temple complex. Wow, look at that, look at that, look at that. And Jesus says, not one stone is going to be left on another. This is all coming down, which happened in 70 AD, and which Jesus said was going to happen in that same chapter. He said it was all going to happen within one generation. Within one generation. This generation will not pass away till all these things have been fulfilled. And the disciples look at it, you mean not one stone's going to be left on another within one generation? When will these things happen? And Jesus quotes Isaiah chapter 13. Jesus quotes Isaiah 34. And He's using the same kind of prophetic language, saying it's all coming down. So, you have to understand that the apocalyptic imagery that that is being used in Matthew 24 is a kind of prophetic language, the usage of which is established throughout the Old Testament. So, this is not a sign in heaven, but rather a sign concerning the Son of Man who is in heaven. The tribes of the earth see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. The tribes of the earth see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. Now, in Daniel, where does he come? In Daniel, he comes into the presence of the Ancient of Days. His authority is apparent on earth. The tribes do see it, but the coming is most apparent in heaven. Put simply, he is crowned in heaven, and we see the ramifications of that coronation on earth. He's crowned in heaven, and we see the implications, we see the ramifications, we see the effect of his rule on earth. The Jews who put Jesus on trial understood the ramifications of this phrase better than many modern Christians do. This is why, tearing his clothes, the high priest considered the statement blasphemous, because Jesus said this. Jesus quoted this passage at his trial. Jesus quoted it at his trial, and the high priest tore his clothes. Jesus saith unto him, Thou hast said, nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see, you, Caiaphas, you shall see the Son of Man sitting, where's that? Sitting on the right hand of power. That's sitting at the right hand of the Ancient of Days. You, Caiaphas, are going to see the enthronement of the Son of Man, sitting on the right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of heaven. Coming in the clouds of heaven into the courtroom of the Ancient of Days to be seated at the right hand of the Ancient of Days. Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, He hath spoken blasphemy. What further need have we of witnesses? Behold, now ye have heard his blasphemy. Matthew 26, 64 and 65. Mark 14, 62 and 60 through 64. We need to pay really close attention to this, because this was the passage that brought about the conviction of Jesus. This was the passage that the Jews, misunderstanding, condemned their Messiah to death. And this was the passage that Jesus, understanding, used to encourage himself as he steeled himself for the cross. Remember, it says in Hebrews that Jesus endured the cross, despising the shame, and he did it for the joy that was set before him. Jesus knew that on the other side of the cross was a resurrection, and on the other side of the resurrection was an ascension, and on the other side of that ascension was an enthronement, a crowning, and universal dominion. He was going to be given everything. What the devil offered him in the temptation. Here, I'll just give it to you. All you have to do is bow down and worship me. Jesus refused it, not because he didn't want the kingdoms of the world, but because he didn't want them as a present from the devil. He came to conquer. He came to bind the strong man, as he says in Luke. He says that you can't bind the strong man and take all his armor until you can't take his armor until you bind him. And he says that the Son of Man, Jesus, is going to bind the devil. And he's going to take all his stuff. Well, what belongs to the devil? The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. And that happened. That's not going to happen. That happened already. And we're celebrating that this Sunday. This is what we're celebrating. This is what we're talking about. And we have to understand what Daniel's talking about, because Caiaphas didn't understand and condemned the Son of God.
I think JMac had it too literal. His system of interpretation is too literal, and I think there's a lot of problems along that line of arguments. For example, he quoted Isaiah 13:10. In that text, in that particular passage, that chapter, it was referring to the Babylonians, and God told the Babylonians that the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky. That's an apocalyptic language, and obviously there was no literal darkening of the sun, dimming of the moon, and the falling of the stars from the sky during that time when God judged the Babylonians. And Isaiah 19, the one John MacArthur quoted in Isaiah 19 verse 1 and onwards, it says there, an oracle concerning Egypt, Behold, the Lord is riding on a swift cloud and comes to Egypt, and the idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence. Of course, during that time, there was no literal Yahweh riding on a swift cloud, riding on a chariots of clouds. This text is an apocalyptic language. It simply means judgment. So I don't think that you have to interpret that literally in the future, just as you cannot interpret that literally in the past in Isaiah 19 verse 1. So I think Doug Wilson has a lot of insight in this aspect of interpreting apocalyptic language. I may be wrong, but I think I'm right. How about you? Who do you think is more biblical? Let us know in the comments section below, and if you think John MacArthur is right and biblical, give him a like. And if you think Doug Wilson is right and biblical, then give him a heart. Please don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you may, please check the description below to get more information about our topic. God bless you. We will meet again in our next video.